Wasabi Wallet. I'm fairly private.
What's up, everyone? Ben with the BTC Sessions here, and this is your daily session.
Hodl that Bitcoin.
Before we jump in, big shout out to sponsors of the show, Ledn.io. This is where you can use your Bitcoin for a couple of different services. The first of which is actually to stack more sats on top of your Bitcoin. And you can do that through their savings account. You deposit and you earn interest on your Bitcoin paid in Bitcoin. And secondly is to obtain a Bitcoin backed loan. So you use your Bitcoin as collateral to secure a Canadian or US dollar loan. That Bitcoin sits in a dedicated account that it is auditable 24/7. So if you want to check out either of those services, you can click the link down below, and if you opt to get a loan, they'll actually credit you with an additional $50 worth of Bitcoin. Secondly, if you're into Bitcoin, then privacy is important, and one of the things I use all the time is NordVPN. So I have this on my phone and on my computer. Basically, it masks your IP address, it encrypts your browsing data, and it has a few other added benefits, one of which is to unlock geoblock content. So there's a link down below in the description where you can get the service for $3 a month. And with that, let's dive into the news. So, there has been obviously a lot of pushback over the last couple of months from banking, from the Senate, from governments around the world in relation to Libra, which is Facebook's eventually to be launched cryptocurrency that they're trying to put together. And I say eventually because there's been so much pushback. It is very much a question of whether it launches, and if it launches, will it be anything resembling what they proposed they wanted to do. And so what is it, and what's the pushback here? Because banks are actually starting to appeal to the Fed to do something about this. So now it should be known that the Libra cryptocurrency is actually not really a cryptocurrency per se. What it would actually be if it launches as intended, it would be a basket of fiat currencies that back it. So things like the dollar, the maybe Russian ruble, the Chinese yuan, the euro, the British pound. So you're going to have a basket of fiat currencies, and then Libra is backed by those and is kind of its own free-floating currency. But because there's multiple currencies behind it, you get the stability without the worry of one of those currencies going down. Now, I mean, they're all fiat currencies, so they obviously all gradually trend downward anyways, but it does take control away from central banks and in turn regular banks when it comes to lending. And anyways, so what are some of these banks saying? Well, they're saying that Facebook is potentially creating a digital money ecosystem outside of sanctioned financial markets, or a shadow banking system. So they say as consumers adopt Libra, more deposits could migrate onto the platform, effectively reducing liquidity, and disintermediation may further expand into loan and investment services. So they're appealing to basically the Senate. They're appealing to the Federal Reserve to do something about this. They've actually, the U.S. lawmakers are even asking the Fed to create a digital version of the dollar so that Libra doesn't take over, which again, I find funny. So there was a couple representatives, one from Arkansas and one from Illinois, and they said, the Federal Reserve, as a central bank of the United States, has the ability and the natural role to develop a national digital currency. We are concerned that the primacy of the US dollar could be in long-term jeopardy from wide adoption of digital fiat currencies. Internationally, the Bank for International Settlements conducted a study that found over 40 countries around the world have currently developed or are looking into developing a digital currency. So lawmakers and banks are freaking out because they think that it's going to be Libra and other corporate money that gets created, stuff like JP Morgan coin and stuff that's been looked into, Goldman Sachs, Wells Fargo, other major banks, they think that it's the corporate money that's going to take over. They're worried. I have to laugh at this because these guys, they've gone and they've regulated themselves into this perfect little niche where nobody else could get in, or it was so difficult and so cumbersome and so expensive to get in. They thought they regulated themselves into a place where they were the old boys club and they were the big boys in the room and nobody else could come to the table and play. When what happened is people just routed around them, and now they're freaking out because they've regulated themselves into a corner. They lobbied and pushed to make sure nobody else could get in the door, and somebody just went around the side of the house. And I feel like it's a little poetic that this is the way it's happening. And the elephant in the fucking room is that it's not the corporate money that's going to be there and they're undoing. It's Bitcoin. Bitcoin is sitting there. It's the elephant in the room where there can be no Senate hearing asking about the plans of Bitcoin because there's no one person to ask that. It's completely its own entity. And yeah, sure, they may get some competition in the short term, but honestly, Bitcoin is going to suck the air out of the room. And I feel like nobody's quite seeing it. And I think in the end, what's going to happen is you're going to have banks and even the government just kind of throw up their hands and say, well, if somebody's stealing control from us, we'd rather have no one have control. And that's where you start to see the lean towards Bitcoin. If I can't have control, we don't want you to have control, and therefore nobody has control. And I think the competitive nature is actually what's going to push even further towards Bitcoin. So we're going to move on from this story here. Trouble in Paradise over at blockchain.com, formerly blockchain.info. So there's been a lot of people jumping ship over at blockchain. Now, obviously, they famously were backers of the New York Agreement, where a number of companies tried to essentially hijack the Bitcoin network, put in their own developers, and that whole thing failed in spectacular fashion when individual users spun up their own nodes and basically said, whatever you do, we don't agree, we're not going along with it, and you will be running something that is not Bitcoin, not as we consider it. And so they backed out last minute. Anyways, a lot of people have been jumping ship, and when I say people, I mean their executives, their C-suite, high-level executives are leaving in droves. Most recently, a couple of their CEOs that have been some of the longest serving are expected to leave this month. So there have been other departures, and there's a lot of speculation around what that could be because of. Some are saying, well, it's just because, some people aren't cut out to be in this kind of startup ecosystem when they're coming from somewhere else, when they're coming from traditional finance. They're so used to these perfectly laid out plans and corporate structures that they're not used to this fly-by-night crazy ecosystem of Bitcoin and cryptocurrencies. I kind of think that's a little bit of bullshit, but anyways, that's besides the point. But there are also rumors that a lot of these executives, they're kind of looking at the industry and they're kind of seeing there's a lack of growth opportunity when it comes to blockchain, as in blockchain, the company. They are already veterans. They've been around forever, but they run a free wallet service. They've tried a couple things that didn't quite pan out, one of which was their own hardware wallet, which was actually, it looked like just a rebranded Ledger Nano S. So there's been a couple things that haven't quite panned out, although if you ask representatives from blockchain, they won't say that those things were a failure, but the rumor mill is churning, and it it sounds like internally they are considered very much failures. Now, the other thing about this is they've had a couple other things that are launching that could potentially turn things around. They've got a crypto to crypto exchange thing called Swap. They've also got an actual fiat to crypto exchange called The Pit that are launching, that they're hoping to kind of turn around to profitability in 2020. But again, not looking fantastic. Now, the other major thing here that this speculation is because of, and there's been a lot of stuff coming out, it's that the CEO, what's his name? Peter, God, what the hell is his name? Peter Smith. Peter Smith, apparently he is a huge asshole to work for. And there's been a lot of complaints that he's super condescending and just difficult, particularly actually to female members of the staff, as reported here anyways. So yeah, anyways, I feel sorry for people that maybe are working there and were excited to work in the industry and just kind of took what they could get. But the company as a whole, if their behaviors, I feel like their behaviors have kind of led to this. So unfortunate for the people in jobs there, but hopefully if they were contributing well, they'll find jobs at better companies that are more friendly to the Bitcoin ecosystem. And from one train wreck to the other, BitPay is partnering with Ripple. And by partnering, all I mean is that they're adding Ripple to their wallet and they're allowing merchants to accept Ripple. This is really just such a nothing story, but it kind of started swirling around Twitter, and you know, a lot of Ripple fanboys are making a big deal of it. Ooh, great big new deal. Not really. Is it really going to pump the price if you can just use Ripple in another wallet? Not particularly, I don't imagine. Is it really going to pump the price if a merchant can now accept XRP through BitPay, which means they're automatically dumping on the market? Realistically, all that's going to do, if a lot of people opt to spend it that way, is it's going to dump even more Ripple on the market as Ripple Labs themselves continue dumping, millions of dollars worth of XRP on their poor bag holders every single month. So again, I guess it's a match made in heaven, because again, BitPay also signer of the New York Agreement and hasn't been doing the best things when it comes to helping out the Bitcoin ecosystem. So to blockchain and BitPay, good riddance, I guess. Now, on the positives for Bitcoin, Trezor has made a move to drop new firmware, which allows users that are only interested in Bitcoin to have Bitcoin-only firmware on the device. So I see this as a positive development. I see this as them recognizing that there is a demand for this in the market, and that's always positive. I think in general, it's also good for Bitcoin users in that when you have a device that also has firmware that allows interaction with other coins, it also kind of opens up the security to whatever the implications of each of those protocols that you're interacting with are as well. So if there's something that could be exploited with a particular coin, you never really know. With all of those kind of expanded horizons of accepting all of these new coins onto your device, you could also be opening up attack vectors. So I do think it's a positive thing to have a Bitcoin-only firmware. However, I know that Rodolfo from OpenDime also sees this as a little bit of a marketing gimmick. His reasoning why is, well, it's kind of funny to say, hey, we're opening up to Bitcoin only, when really there's not too much benefit in that you still have to have a diversion of your team where you're diverting your attention and you're spending resources on the Bitcoin only firmware, but you're also putting all of these resources into just adding all these coins on the other opposite firmware. Whereas if you were to just focus on Bitcoin, you can actually get the best of the best and really focus on that security, which is of course what Rodolfo is doing with the OpenDime. which is an excellent hardware wallet when it comes to Bitcoin. I encourage you guys to check that out. So yeah, either way, I do see this in general as a positive thing. It's just more recognition that more people are leaning towards recognizing that Bitcoin is the important thing here and that we can build on it if we allocate the appropriate resources to it. One last thing to announce here, and so I put this up the other day. Of course, I work with Bull Bitcoin, and if you're in Canada, they just upped their e-transfer limits. Before it was $1,000 per day. It is now $3,000 per day just for the e-transfer funding option across the board. So if you're in Canada, if you're on Bull Bitcoin, then yeah, your limits are now up. If you haven't done an e-transfer yet to Bull Bitcoin, just know there is a probationary first week, and then after that, you'll have access to $3,000 a day. So yeah, if you want to check that out, there's a link for that down below. Anyways, guys, I'm going to wrap it up there. Thank you for joining me today. If you're new here, hit like, subscribe, and share. Always hit that share button. It's great to get more eyeballs on the videos. If you want to help out the show in another way, hit up the sponsors I mentioned, Ledn, NordVPN. Also, check out Wasabi Wallet for privacy. It's key. Check that out. And if you really like what you saw, you can always hit me up with a Bitcoin Lightning Network tip and my tippin.me page. With that, I am out for the day. I will see you guys tomorrow for your daily session.